In this video, we're going to take a look at the practice quiz for Standard 8, Solving Rationals and Applications. In number 1, it says, add the following rational expression and write your answer in simplest form. So what we're going to do is find a least common denominator. I can't make x plus 8 become x plus 1, and I can't make x plus 1 become x plus 8. So I need one of each to be my common denominator. So I'm going to put x plus 8 and x plus 1 for my denominator. And I'm just going to write it out twice. Then I need to multiply the one on the left by what it does not have, which is x plus 1. Let me get a smaller pen to work with. Okay, so let's multiply by x plus 1 because that's what it needs to have the common denominator. And on the right, it needs to be multiplied by x plus 8. Remember, we multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing because it's like we're multiplying by 1, which is okay for us to do. So I'm going to bring down 2 times x plus 1 in my numerator, and then 4 times x plus 8. And then we have a common denominator now, so let's just write that one time. Don't change it, just keep it like it is. And then we have 2 times x plus 1, so let's put 2x plus 2, which is what we get when we distribute the 2. Let's distribute the 4, so we get 4x plus 32. So now we just need to clean that up by combining like terms in the numerator. So we get 2x plus 4x is 6x, and then 2 plus 32 is 34. Then bring over that common denominator, but you do not need to multiply them together or change anything about that denominator. If you're asked about the restricted values, it would still be where your denominator would equal 0, which would be at -8 and -1. So x cannot be -8 or -1. All right, let's look at number 2. It says subtract the following rational expression. So it's very similar to that first one. We're just subtracting this time. We can't make x minus 5 and 3 become each other, so we just need to write down both of them. That's always an okay thing to do, is just write kind of everything you have together as your common denominator. Then what's on the left needs to be multiplied by 3, so we do that on the top and on the bottom. What's on the right, we need to multiply by x minus 5 so that they would both have that same denominator of 3 times x minus 5. So then we get 3 times 7 is 21. We have 4x times x minus 5. So let's distribute, and we would get 4x squared minus 20x. Keep in mind you're subtracting this time, so you are subtracting this whole numerator over here, not just the 4x squared, so that's where you have to be careful with these, but we're going to work on combining like terms now. So let's bring down our common denominator, leave it just like it looks, but write it one time, and then let's just say we have negative 4x squared. That has the highest exponent, so I'm going to put that first in my numerator. I have negative 20x, so 2 negatives make it a positive 20x. And then this 21 is positive. None of those added together or subtracted because they're not like terms. So all we could really do was bring them down. And so that is our simplified form. And then we could say x cannot equal what would make our denominator equal to 0. So in that original problem, that was just 5, and it stayed that way throughout our whole problem. So that's it for number 2. This one is supposed to say number 3, so we'll just write that down, but that's no big deal. We're going to solve the following rational equation. This one is a type 1 equation, so we're able to cross multiply it because all you have is one fraction equal to another fraction. So let's say 2 times x plus 3 is equal to 4 times 7x. And then we can distribute the 2. So 2x plus 6 is equal to 28x. Then we're able to go ahead and finish solving. So let's subtract 2x. Bring down 6 equals 26x. And then divide both sides by 26. and we get 6 over 26 for x, but we could reduce that a little bit to just divide them by 2. We would get 3 over 13. Now we could also state our restricted values because we have places that the denominator would equal 0. So x cannot equal 0 because that would make this side over here on the left equal to 0. And then x cannot equal -3 because that would make the side on the right equal to 0. All right, let's look at number 4. This is a work rate problem. It says Mary can paint a certain room in 4 hours, but Kendra needs 5 hours to paint the same room. How long does it take them to paint the room if they're working together? So you'd say Mary can paint one room in 4 hours. Kendra needs 5 hours, so put one room 5 hours. So that's Mary plus Kendra. Total would be one job, one room, and we don't know how long it takes them together, so we're going to put an X. So over here, that's together. Now we just have to solve this equation. There's a couple ways we could do it. We could put together what's on the left first and then cross multiply, or you could just get a common denominator and then cancel it out. So I think what I'm going to do is put together what's on the left first and then cross multiply. So we would have, let's see, let me write down, 4 times 5 would give me 20 for my common denominator over here. And I would have 5 over 20 plus 4 over 20 equals 1 over x. And that would give me 9 over 20, because now I could add them together. Don't add the 20s and get a 40. Just keep the denominator like it is. Then let's cross multiply, and we get 9x equals 20 times 1, which is just 20. And we could divide by 9. So x equals 20 over 9. Let's get a better number for that. What is 20 divided by 9? Is about 2.2 hours, because that's what we were given, working together. If you need hours and minutes, by the way, you could say 0.2 is the number, like portion of the hour, times 60 minutes. So you would say it's actually 2 hours and 12 minutes is another way you could say that. I'm okay with either answer on your quiz. For number 5, it says find the mistake and correct it. So in this first part of the problem, we just got to search for where they made a mistake. Let me move my Desmos out of the way for a minute. So let's look at what they've got. X plus 1 over 2x plus 2 equals 3 over 2x. So it looks like they cross multiplied in the first step. So they have 2x times x plus 1. All that looks okay. They have 3 times 2x plus 2. So all that looks okay. Let's check if they distributed it correctly. So 2x times x is 2x squared, and 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times 2x gives us 6x, and 3 times 2 is 6. So far, those are all okay. Then it looks like they put everything on one side. So I would need to move the 6x over. So 2x minus 6x does equal -4x. If I subtracted the 6, that would give me the -6 they've got. So that step looks okay too. Then let's see what else they did. Looks like they factored by taking out a 2. So I'm going to write it right there. If they took out a 2, that would be x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then they factored that into x minus 3, x plus 1. So -3 plus 1 does multiply to give me -3. And it adds to be -2. So far the factors look good. Then you have x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0. All right, so that looks good too. And they said x equals 3 or -1. Okay, so then they said the solutions are both 3 and -1. Let's check and make sure that would be okay. So if I plugged in 3 for my denominator in the original problem, I just have to check that that's not equal to 0. So 2 times 3 plus 2 would be 8. And let's see, 2 times 3 would be 6. So 3 is definitely a solution. Let's check -1. -1, so let's say 2 times -1 plus 2. That would be -2 plus 2, which is 0. Oh, so -1 cannot be a solution. That one was extraneous. So the only thing they missed in this problem was the fact that -1 cannot be a solution, even though it looks like it can. So to show the correct work for this one, we could actually like write all of their steps down to that point and just explain that like -1 is extraneous. So let's just say x plus 1 over 2x plus 2. Let's solve it a different way, actually, just for some extra practice. If I look at this problem from the very beginning, I could factor out a 2, and I would have x plus 1 left if I rewrote it. If you notice, this x plus 1 would actually reduce right there, and I would have 1 over 2 equals 3 over 2x. And then let's cross multiply. So we get 3 times 2 equals 1 times 2x. So I get 6 equals 2x. We can divide by 2, and we get x equals 3. And we would be able to know that that was a hole in the graph at x equals -1. So let's just look at it that way and give you a different perspective. So I'm just going to write x cannot equal -1. And that would have taken a lot less work, actually. So that's it for practice quiz for standard 8.